everyone. Welcome to the third annual Changemakers Awards, presented by the News Literacy Project. My name is Ebony Rice, Senior Vice President of the Educator Network at NLP. Today's event is about honoring the incredible work of news literacy changemakers from across the country. Each of the honorees you'll hear about during our program have distinguished themselves among their peers in their respective fields. And we are thrilled to acknowledge their efforts and the efforts of many of you who are leading voices in support of news literacy education. This is a movement. You are part of a nationwide push to build a more news literate nation and in turn, a more robust, equitable democracy. If recent years have taught us anything, it's that it's going to take all of us to build a future founded on facts. And our work is enriched by the educators, journalists, students, and members of the public that take seriously the charge to stand up against misinformation. You are our heroes. On behalf of the News Literacy Project, thank you for being here. We are so glad you joined us for this celebration because we simply could not do this work without you. And at this time, it is my esteemed pleasure to introduce NLP's President and COO and our next CEO, Chuck Salter.
Thank you, Ebony. I'm delighted to join the celebration this evening. Assuming the role of CEO at NLP is truly an honor. Working with this team is a privilege, and succeeding Alan Miller, a person whose integrity, storied career, and dedication to the public good has been a model for so many of us. It is a challenge I don't take lightly. But tonight we are here to honor three extraordinary individuals who have demonstrated a commitment to journalistic excellence, a passion for education, and a curiosity to learn. And in doing so, have each championed news literacy and advanced our mission to create a more news literate America. This is an exciting time at the News Literacy Project. In addition to new leadership, we have a new strategic plan and a redoubled commitment to not only expand our work in schools across the country with new programs and resources, but to reach out to the public as well, helping everyone become more discerning consumers of news and other information, and thereby becoming better engaged and more equal participants in our democracy. And the need for citizens like this has never been greater in our lifetimes. American democracy and the rights and freedoms that democracy promises for all people, though oftentimes still falls short, is under attack. While the motives for these attacks vary, in all of them, merchants of chaos advance their agendas by taking advantage of our complex and quickly moving information landscape. They sow doubt, confusion, fear, and even anger and hatred among all of us. We've reached a point where we live in almost different information realities from one another, where an objective truth is harder and harder to find. No democratic society can endure this type of division when it has lost the foundation of a shared reality upon which honest debate and consensus can happen. But there's hope, and our award winners this evening represent that hope. Individuals from different walks of life demonstrating that people can become news literate. Acting as a champion for news literacy does make a difference, and that quality, standards-based journalism is a foundation of a strong democracy. Two of our awards this evening, the Student of the Year and Journalist of the Year, were named for outstanding journalists who, before their passing, also personally helped strengthen the News Literacy Project. While I never had the pleasure of meeting either Gwen Ifill or John Carroll, their legacies are obvious and they endure. And with that in mind, it is my singular pleasure to announce tonight that the staff of the News Literacy Project agreed to name our remaining award, the Educator of the Year Award, after our very own notable journalist, Alan Miller. Prior to founding NLP over 14 years ago, Alan enjoyed a distinguished career in journalism. He started at the Times-Union in Albany, New York, where he was a political and state investigative reporter. He spent 5 years as a state and county political reporter at the Record in Hackensack, New Jersey, before joining the LA Times, where he worked for 21 years, the last 14 as a charter member of the Washington Bureau's high-profile investigative team. His reporting prompted investigations by the Justice Department, Congress, and inspectors general in federal agencies and resulted in congressional hearings, reforms, and even criminal convictions. He has received more than a dozen national reporting honors, including the 2003 Pulitzer Prize for National Reporting. Also, the George Polk Award, the Goldsmith Prize for Investigative Reporting, and the Investigative Reporters and Editors Medal. While there is no adequate way for this staff or this organization to thank Alan for his work and dedication to the causes of quality journalism and news literacy education, we could think of no better way to honor his legacy than by naming this award after him and honoring his name alongside those of Ms. Eiffel's and Mr. Carroll's. And with that, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Shaelynn Farnsworth, Senior Director of Education Partnerships, to present this first award of the evening.
Thank you, Chuck. And Alan, I am proud to be a part of the News Literacy Project, where this so very well-deserved named award will honor your legacy and continue your important work. As a former classroom teacher, I am pleased to introduce the Alan C. Miller Educator of the Year Award winner. This award is given yearly to an educator who is committed to integrating news literacy skills and concepts in their teaching. Tonight's awardee reflects this commitment through developing meaningful, engaging, and authentic activities, demonstrating passion and advocacy for students' right to news literacy education, and finally, collaborating with other educators to engage students in news literacy skills. The 2022 Alan C. Miller Educator of the Year is Jamie Gregory. Jamie is an upper librarian for grades 9 through 12 and a journalism newspaper teacher at Christ Church Episcopal School in South Carolina. As a veteran teacher, Jamie was introduced to the News Literacy Project in 2016 and attended her first Newslit camp in 2020. As an educator, Jamie says this experience was incredibly validating. Jamie understands that with technology rapidly evolving and the increase of digital information consumption by students, professional learning for educators is vital to help them keep up with the latest trends. One example is when Jamie utilized Checkology's Newsroom to Classroom program to invite a local reporter to her class to discuss their recent articles on censorship and education, a topic that impacted her students. Through this interaction, Jamie involved her students the entire process, reading articles, contacting the reporter, establishing a relationship, and bringing the reporter into her classroom to show how news literacy connects to censorship and helps prevent it. At the end, the reporter interviewed Jamie and was able to include a voice in a piece that had been left out of the debate. Jamie's application and nomination were filled with vivid examples from the classroom, interactions with colleagues, and meaningful connections with families and community. The list of quotes was extensive, but this one resonated with me. I don't just see students, I see people. This attribute has allowed me to develop a student-centered approach to teaching and learning through the school library in my journalism classroom, helping students apply their learning to challenges they experience in their lives, building on curiosity and empathy to become active, informed citizens. During a time when teaching is challenging and educators face everything from accusations of indoctrination to censorship, Jamie is meeting these issues head on and modeling news literacy skills to empower students. That's why we're proud to honor her with the Alan C. Miller Educator of the Year Award. Congratulations, Jamie Gregory.
I've been teaching for 17 years. This is my 9th year as a school librarian. In 2022, the role of a school librarian is changing rapidly. My name is Jamie Gregory, and I teach at Christ Church Episcopal School in Greenville, South Carolina. My role as a school librarian and as a journalism newspaper teacher is to help teach students how to find information that's credible. We're ready to start. I always start my class by giving a survey of their news habits. They overwhelmingly say that they get their news from YouTube and from social media apps. I have 11 students in my journalism class. When I took on this job at Christ Church, it had been over 10 years since I had taught a journalism class. Students were not getting news from social media back in the mid to late 2000s. And when I first got out my teaching materials from when I had done it before, I knew immediately I could not teach it the same way. I first became aware of the News Literacy Project's resources back in 2015-2016. I quickly knew that I was going to have everything I needed to help me develop a curriculum. I have used the news goggles, slideshows. I use the SIFT every single week. I have also used elements of Checkology and the news quizzes that are on the News Literacy Project website. We're going to look at this quiz from the News Literacy Project and test your knowledge of social media platforms' policies. I feel that the news literacy education I've provided with my students has been transformative for them. Students are able to have more complex and in-depth conversations about the types of news that they are consuming. I think as news literacy education picks up momentum and as we help fight the narrative of misinformation, we are helping students navigate information overload. Being named the News Literacy Project Educator of the Year was a big surprise. I see myself as a regular teacher who is just trying to meet the needs of her students. I'm so humble and grateful for the honor. I will never forget attending my first news literacy camp and hearing John Silva say, "Every student has the right to news literacy education." Reignited my passion, and I knew I was in the right place, and I have not looked back.
All right. Congratulations again to Jamie. You can join us in applauding Jamie by adding a note in the Zoom chat box. I'm Dr. James Stansford, the coordinator of tutoring services at Prairie View A&M University and a chief program officer for Intellectuel. I'm also proud to be an NLP ambassador. Greetings, everyone. News Literacy Project, thank you so much for having me tonight. This is a great event, and I'm very thankful to be a part of it. NLP is exactly the kind of organization I have always dreamed of being a part of. And I applaud all of you for taking the initiative to affect change in your communities and really the whole world. I am sure you have all heard the expression, be the change you wish to see. I truly believe in that. I have believed in it since I was a young boy growing up in a trailer park in North Carolina in the 1980s. I love to read and I love to learn. Fantasy, mystery, and history in particular always fascinated me. Because of the support and encouragement from my parents, I'm proud to say my older brother and I were the first generation in our family to receive a college education. My journey has not been an easy one, but I'm proud of my accomplishments and where I am today in life. I had a history teacher in high school who was an authority on American history, and he inspired me to become a teacher. I attended college at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and then became a high school social studies teacher. I earned a master's degree in curriculum and instruction and in social studies. And eventually I did my doctoral work in education, focusing on instructional leadership. I eventually worked for almost 20 years as a high school teacher. Then I became a professional tutor. Now I lead the tutoring program at Prairie View A&M University, along with helping to get more people of color outdoors with Outdoor Afro, and encouraging people to read more and become media literate and better digital citizens through my organization, Intellectuel, and of course, in my work as a news literacy ambassador for News Literacy Project. Working in news literacy is certainly a way to do it. We all can be news literacy ambassadors. Lord knows we need it, am I right? Therefore, I'll leave you with this. Get involved. If you have the skills to do so, The time is now. The person you are waiting for is you. If not now, then when? If not you, then who? I encourage you to accept the challenge to help others unselfishly and be a better person. You never know where it will lead you and how society will benefit. Right now, our society needs news literacy champions like us to not sit on the sidelines, but to get in the game. That's why I'm here. That's why I champion news literacy education. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Pam Brunskill, NLP's Senior Manager of Education and Content, and I am honored to present the 2022 Gwen Ifill Student of the Year Award. This award is in honor of Gwen Ifill, who covered politics for some of the country's premier newspapers and TV stations as one of the most prominent TV anchors of our generation. She broke barriers in news reporting by carving a niche for herself as a political journalist at a time when Black and female journalists were rare in newsrooms. This award is in memory of her extensive and pioneering career. I am excited to now introduce our High School Student of the Year, Alyssa Baltimore. Alyssa understands the importance of credibility and how false information spreads. She fights against false news and for social justice, finding credible information about mass incarceration. As she acknowledged in her essay, Alyssa learned to evaluate the tone of information about this issue and recognize overtly biased pieces. She also learned how to spot misinformation and combat propaganda as she worked to understand how the American justice system can be unfair. Her research and experience with Checkology have inspired Alyssa to pursue a career as a defense attorney, to give, and I quote, hope to the hopeless and privileges to those who might otherwise lack it, unquote. We know whatever the future brings, Alyssa will use news literacy in her fight for equality, equity, and justice. We are honored to present this award to Alyssa Baltimore.
I kind of have always felt the need to help people. I want to be the change that I would want other people to be for me. My name is Alyssa Baltimore. I'm an 11th grader at Station Camp High School. I kind of feel my junior year with not only AP classes, but honor classes too, because I kind of want to make sure I'm challenging myself. I'm not looking just to graduate, but I'm looking to learn. In some of my classes, I am the only person of color. There's an extra burden because I kind of just feel like I have a high standard to hold. I get a lot of my information from social media such as Instagram and TikTok, and I feel like other people get their information from there as well, but don't do any backup research. When you have so many people manipulating the truth, it becomes challenging to differentiate between what's real and what's not. I started using Checkology in my AP English class at the beginning of this year. I learned how to identify bias and recognize misinformation. Checkology has changed the way I look at social media or news articles. Now I check the background before I share anything. Once I actually started being able to find accurate sources, I started to read about things like wrongful executions or wrongful imprisonment, and I felt I could be a person who helped change this. I want to go to college and then I want to go to law school and become a lawyer. Yesterday I got a chance to visit the Tennessee Supreme Court. While I was there, I could kind of see myself fighting for what I believe in. I want to become a lawyer because I've always felt the need to help people who might not be able to help themselves, or to provide services to people who might not be able to afford it, because I feel like how much you make shouldn't determine what you have or what help you get. When I got the email that I had won, I was kind of shocked. I heard about Gwen Ifill from my grandmother. My family is very intent on telling us about important Black women because they want us to feel connect to something. They want us to feel like we can be something. I feel like this has helped me grow, and it has solidified my idea for what I would want to be in the future.
Congratulations, Alyssa. Please join us in applauding Alyssa by adding a note of your own in the Zoom chat box. Hello, everyone. Glad to be here. My name is Cathy Collins, and I've been honored to serve as the Massachusetts NLP Ambassador for the past 2 years. I am passionate about the topic of news and media literacy and have worked as a library media teacher for the past 23 years at the K-12 level. I've published my writing in various journals, and I'm a past Reynolds High School Journalism Institute Fellow and a recipient of AASL's Intellectual Freedom Award. I also served as a project consultant for the ebook, Searchlights and Sunglasses, Journalism in the Digital Age. In that ebook, Eric Newton highlighted the challenges of truth-seeking in our digital age. He shared, think of it, the internet has become a perpetually open library of the human mind. Social media, the new messenger god of breaking news, more data produced every second than can be consumed in a lifetime. The glare is overwhelming. Truth hides in the open. Today, journalists who want to help us see, to help us find our way, must find a way to provide sunglasses to calm the blinding light. We need journalistic search engines and tools that dig deep for facts. We need digital sunglasses. Technology that can tell you if social media is being generated by software like Twitter bots or by the PR people who manage online reputations. The role of professional journalism, and I would add of news literacy educators, is not shrinking, it's growing. We need to verify and clarify stories, but also navigate and curate cyberspace. As educators, we need to teach our young people how to navigate and evaluate the information they find online and elsewhere. I'm a positive thinker, and even in the midst of our current misinformation crisis, I believe that we can indeed educate our young people to tell fact from fiction and to actively seek out and find truth. As misinformation spreads, the urgency of supporting students to evaluate online information grows. With the help of NLP resources such as Checkology and the SIF's awesome classroom-ready resources, I teach my students critical thinking skills, such as how to read laterally, to open new tabs and do a quick search for more information about the source of the claims being made. I can also cover the topics of ethics in journalism, the role of the press in a democratic society, and press freedoms around the world. With practice from interactive activities provided through NLP and through thoughtful in-class discussions and project-based learning activities, my students are on their way to becoming well-equipped not only to evaluate information, but also to make informed decisions about critical issues. These decisions ideally will be based on facts discovered through diligent fact-finding and their own sound moral codes. Through integration and development of meaningful learning activities such as these, I feel we empower our students to take an interest and make a difference in the world around them while building confidence and foresee skills. Though the times they are a-changin', to quote Bob Dylan, I remain hopeful and optimistic about my students' growing ability to navigate through and contribute to both local, national, and global discourse as well-informed, news-literate citizens. Thank you so much, NLP.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mike Webb, NLP's Senior Vice President of Communications, and I'm very proud to be here to present the 2022 John S. Carroll Award for Journalist of the Year. The award is named for Mr. Carroll in part because he knew that journalism can make the world a better place. Carroll was the top editor at the Lexington Herald-Leader, the Baltimore Sun, and the Los Angeles Times, where his journalists won numerous Pulitzer Prizes and other awards for their work. He was also a founding member of NLP's board of directors and served as the board chair for 4 years. In accepting the National Press Foundation's Editor of the Year award, Carroll said, "Journalists sense that newspaper work can and should be a wonderful wonderfully satisfying and entertaining way to engage the world, and that in a free society, there is no mightier sword than the written word. We couldn't agree more. And that's why I'm so pleased to honor Pierre Thomas with the John S. Carroll Journalist of the Year Award. Thomas has been a steadfast partner and collaborator in the NLP orbit since the earliest days. He's participated in more NLP events than any other journalist. He's served on our advisory councils and is currently a member of our National Leadership Council. And he's been a consistent and dedicated donor to NLP, including as a founding member of our Visionary Circle. Beyond his support for NLP, Thomas also understands that journalism makes a difference. He began his career at the Roanoke Times and World News. In 1987, he began reporting for the Washington Post and then moved to CNN 10 years later. Thomas joined ABC News in 2000 and would go on to win a Peabody, an Emmy, and the Alfred I. DuPont Awards for his role in helping ABC News cover the September 11 attacks. He has won numerous other awards and currently serves as the network's Chief Justice Correspondent, covering major stories and reporting on events ranging from the death of George Floyd and the resulting racial injustice and police brutality protests, to gun violence in America, to the January 6th insurrection to overturn the results of the 2020 election. I hope you'll watch and listen carefully to the following video, as he offers very inspiring words that help explain why we believe America will be stronger if more people become news literate. Thank you for all that you've done, and congratulations, Pierre.
Journalists are not always portrayed as patriotic, but we are. And we want the country to thrive. It's how clear it is that American society is still struggling. And one of the ways it can do well is to have a public that knows how to consume news. We just literally saw what can happen when people consume bad information.
We fought with these people who were prepared.
And all you need to do is look to January 6th. More than anything I can remember in modern history, this was an event driven by misinformation. Did the people who were there tell you why they were there?
We're stopping the steal.
That's why we as journalists, every time we go on air, every time we write something, we need to be at our absolute best.
Think about this. Every 12 minutes, a firearm is being used to take a life in this country.
My name is Pierre Thomas. I'm Chief Justice Correspondent for ABC News.
Tens of thousands of Americans shot dead or wounded by guns in this country.
I've been a journalist for more than 30 years. During that time, the change has been extraordinary. Hey, Jack.
Hey, Pierre.
Just wanted to check in with the team and see what's going on and talk about some stories. The news is dynamic. Things can go from happening to being published in seconds. How does one discern what is propaganda, misinformation? How does one determine what is news? If they've not been given a sense of how to separate what is what, you can see how it would naturally be confusing. I think the worst case scenario is an American citizen that's increasingly disconnected from facts and truth. I don't want to even consider what the country becomes if that becomes the norm across the board. In this day and age where disinformation, misinformation is rampant in ways that we haven't seen perhaps ever, I can't think of something more important than what the News Literacy Project stands for and what it's trying to do. I believe in the News Literacy Project mission. I've been able to go into the classroom. I've been able to give remarks at an auditorium with multiple classes at once.
The News Literacy Project is about people like you.
And you literally can see the lights going on in their heads. So I got to meet a lot of teachers and others who are working in the classroom, and they see the impact. And if you begin to multiply that across communities, states, and the nation, we become healthier. To be named the News Literacy Project John S. Carroll Journalist of the Year means the world to me. I'm humbled by it. The organization, I believe, is helping to make journalism and our democracy healthier. Given what's at stake in this moment that we find ourselves, we have to get as many people to know how to discern what is the news and how to consume it as possible.
Wow. Congratulations to all honorees. Please continue to honor them and applaud them in our chat box. And now, it is my great honor and privilege to introduce our keynote speaker for this evening's event. Tracie Potts has contributed as a volunteer to the News Literacy Project since the very earliest days of our classroom program, way back in 2009. In those days, she was a senior Washington correspondent for NBC News Channel, where she was a correspondent for 30 years. She has been one of NLP's most active and dedicated journalist volunteers, visiting classrooms throughout the DC region and virtually in Chicago and New York City. In 2016, when NLP developed its Checkology virtual classroom platform, Tracie graciously agreed to be featured in our popular InfoZones lesson, which has reached more than 100,000 students over the last 6 school years. She is now the executive director of the Eisenhower Institute at Gettysburg College, which works to promote nonpartisan discourse and critical analysis of major issues, helping students translate knowledge into action and assume their responsibility as global citizens. She also serves on the National PTA Board of Directors, has been a teacher, not just on Checkology, but for NBC Universal, Knoxville College, and Biola University. And she has won countless awards and fellowships throughout her long and distinguished career. As one of NLP's most active and dedicated champions and a tireless volunteer for news literacy and civic education, Tracie is truly a change maker in her own right. In fact, she currently serves on NLP's Leadership Council and was one of the earliest winners of the John S. Carroll Award. And so it is my distinct pleasure to welcome her this evening as our keynote speaker. Please welcome Tracie Potts.
Thank you so much, Ebony. Thank you, Alan, Charles, and thank you to the NLP family. I really appreciate you inviting me back in 2009, as you said, Ebony, to be part of the NLP family, to give me an opportunity to champion facts and to champion truth, to give me an opportunity to reach out one-on-one to students and to do something to support and uplift this next generation in their quest for truth. So I'm honored to be here tonight. I'm honored for the opportunity to highlight the importance of news literacy. And as we've heard from our award winners earlier this evening, to celebrate those who champion news literacy education. The education piece is so important here. I want to congratulate tonight's honorees, Jamie, Pierre, and Alyssa. I'm so impressed with your commitment, literally, to help people sift through this avalanche of misinformation and disinformation that we're seeing today. NLP is sort of the, when you think of this as an avalanche, NLP is the shovel, it's the snowblower that's literally helping us dig out and helping us see truth. I'm in an interesting place in my career, and this conversation tonight is very much in my comfort zone. This is the first time that I am speaking on behalf of NLP as both having been a full-time journalist and now a full-time educator as a result of my recent move from NBC to the Eisenhower Institute at Gettysburg College. So I greatly am learning to appreciate the job that educators have in sharing these very important tools with students. While I am no longer in the newsroom on a daily basis, you will hear me refer to journalists as us, because after 3 decades, it is certainly hard to let go. And frankly, I'm a storyteller at heart. And I'm hoping that the story that we are shaping together and the story that I tell you tonight is something that will inspire us all to continue to push toward truth and to continue to help particularly the next generation learn these tools that are needed to separate facts from other information that is not. As Ebony mentioned, my history with NLP goes back to 2009, but my career as a truth seeker actually started in high school, where I started as a student journalist, building a career on not telling people what to think, but telling them how to think, how to deal with information. This is the critical skill that the News Literacy Project deals with, and it's why our work at NLP is so important. You know, we are living in a critical time right now. We are still in a pandemic, and certainly over the last couple of years, if we didn't know before, it has been very clear the importance of factual information, not only to be aware of facts, to know this information, but it literally, as we have learned over the last 2 years, can save lives. Information drives our beliefs. Our beliefs drive decisions that impact not only our own lives, but for many people who are in positions of authority, the lives of millions of other people. We are bombarded today with information, but not necessarily facts. We are bombarded with information, but not necessarily truth. And so we have to ask ourselves, what is this information designed to do? What's the intent? Every article, every post, every tweet, it's almost like we're examining every piece of information to determine what's behind door number 3. And now we deal not only with misinformation, but disinformation that is deliberate. It's intentional, as Alyssa said, manipulating the truth. In my new role at the Eisenhower Institute, my job is to create opportunities for young people to work with public policy. And it has been extremely clear that our democracy is threatened by the lack of accurate information and by the lack of truth. And you know, many of us journalists, educators, and others feel beaten down by the reality of that. My role here tonight is to give you some encouraging news. It does not have to be. I tell my students that facts are not partisan. As someone who worked on Capitol Hill for 18 years, many things are very partisan, and I was able to see the world through that lens, but facts are not partisan. No matter what our beliefs are, we can create a world that exists on differences of opinions, different thoughts that are all based on facts. Democracy, a participatory government, is not partisan. I appreciated the comments by my colleague Pierre about the fact that journalists are patriots. We want to see the country survive, and we want to see the country thrive. And so democracy and supporting democracy is a big part of the work that NLP is doing. Civic engagement and civil discourse are not partisan. Protecting the right of people to be able to speak out, to vote, to participate in government. And so while, yes, democracy is threatened by misinformation, we have an opportunity here as educators, as journalists, as people who care about this, to change that and to shine a bright light on the importance of accurate information and credible sources. So in my new role, I'm working with young people on public policy programs, trying to better define problems, discover challenges facing society, and importantly, to seek creative solutions. This is not surface level work, it's substantial work. These are not headlines, but we are training young people to dig into the important issues of our time. What does that have to do with the News Literacy Project? There is absolutely no way that they can go forward as leaders in this arena without facts. They can't solve the critical issues of our time without a clear understanding and a fact-based understanding of what those issues are. And so as educators, we play a very important role. We are counting on educators at every level, from elementary school, where these concepts really have to begin to be introduced, because believe it or not, elementary school kids have phones and they are being bombarded with information that is inaccurate, to high school, to college. It is our duty to give them the tools that they need to sort through the complex topics that are facing our world. These are topics that our young people in a few years are going to be leaders on. Issues like immigration, racial justice, our legal system, the economy, international affairs, the supply chain and how it affects what you purchase at the grocery store, national security, the environment, healthcare. These are the things that are plaguing our world, but our young people, the next generation of leaders, must understand how to sort through misinformation and find facts and use credible sources in order to not only understand these issues, but to be able to solve these issues. These are the challenges that you are preparing students like Alyssa to solve. And it cannot be done through he said, she said, arguments that are based on beliefs, but are not grounded in truth. So here's an important message for educators. When we equip students with news literacy skills, when we train them how to think critically and think independently, when we talk to them about how to identify fact from fiction and bias and opinion and propaganda and advertising and all of the other pieces of information out there, when we train them how to seek credible sources and the importance of verifying information and not just reposting or retweeting it without checking it out first. When we're doing these things, we're doing more than giving those tools to individuals to use for themselves. We are building a foundation for a society that can solve these important problems. We're laying the groundwork for our students to become change makers, like we saw this evening, to solve problems, to make our world better, to make our world function equitably for everyone. That is what a future founded on facts looks like. And it takes people like Jamie, who's using these resources at the News Literacy Project, not only to inform, but to challenge students, to get them talking. This is transformative work. It takes people like Pierre, who has stepped out of the newsroom to bring a piece of the real world into the classroom, to teach students how to discern info that they are getting at lightning speed. And he talked about that, how quickly we're being bombarded with information. We don't have time to learn the tools. They don't have time to learn the tools. They have to have them ready in their back pockets as this information comes. And it takes young people like Alyssa to use facts to shine a bright light on issues that they're passionate about. In her case, equality and racial justice. This is not a bouncing ball, as sometimes we see bouncing back and forth based on unfounded beliefs. He thinks this, she thinks that. There are facts that underpin these issues and that support creative solutions. And people like Alyssa are digging into those facts and moving the needle based on verifiable information. By the way, Alyssa, I am looking forward to you becoming a lawyer and arguing before the Tennessee and or the US Supreme Court. And you have to promise Pierre, who I know has spent many years covering that court, and I, that you will invite us when you have your first argument before the US Supreme Court. We would be so proud to see that. And so tonight, I'd like to wrap up by issuing a call to action. Some things that we can all think about to be change makers. We certainly saw some impressive change makers tonight, but we can all be change makers in our own homes, in our own workplaces, in our own communities. For educators like Jamie, think about integrating news literacy into every subject, into everything we do. We don't want this to be siloed. This is something that students learn only in a journalism class or practice only in a social studies class or when they visit the media center. This is something that can be incorporated into every subject. For journalists, we have a responsibility to restore public trust by being transparent about how we do things, how we bring truth to the public. The more transparent we are, the more the public will begin to understand how we seek truth and why facts matter. For students, Generation Z has really inspired me. They are poised and they are energized to transform the world. They're smart, they're eager, and they are passionate. And my challenge to you is to marry that passion with truth. Always marry your passion with facts. Use those facts to advance these causes that you fight for, causes that you're passionate about. So rally with facts and march with facts and always advocate with truth. And for all of us, something that we can all do, call it out. Misinformation exists oftentimes because not only do we share it, but we allow it to exist. And so at your own dinner table, in your own family, in your workplace, in our neighborhoods, don't let misinformation and disinformation go unchallenged. It can be a hard thing to do, right? It can be uncomfortable, particularly among people who we know and love. These can be difficult conversations to have, but we can do it, and we have help. Use the resources at the News Literacy Project to arm yourself with the tools to do this effectively. I am so inspired by our honorees tonight, and I'm so inspired by the passion and the work that's being done at the News Literacy Project. I am honored to have had a few moments to speak with you tonight, and I am truly hopeful that as we continue to focus on news literacy education, and facts and truth, we will all be part of making this a much better world. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. I now have the special task of closing our inspiring program. I want to start by thanking Chuck and Shaelynn for their extremely gracious words, and Tracie for her impassioned, thoughtful, resonant remarks and her valuable service. And to congratulate Jamie, Alyssa, and Pierre for their well-deserved recognition. Each of them epitomizes my motivation and aspiration when I founded NLP more than 14 years ago. Bestowing our annual awards is one of the highlights of our year. They not only recognize an educator and a journalist who have been valued partners, and a student who has taken her Czechology lessons to heart and begun to apply them in significant ways. They also reflect all the educators and journalists who collaborate with us to have such impact on students nationwide. Thus, I'm greatly honored and deeply grateful that our staff and board members have decided to name the Educator of the Year Award after me. It is especially meaningful to have my name associated with John Carroll and Gwen Ifill. I had the great good fortune to work closely with each of them. John as both my editor at the Los Angeles Times and as NLP's board chair, and Gwen as a highly engaged NLP board member. They were not only two of the most revered journalists of their time, or any time, but two of the finest people I have ever known. I was proud to call them my colleagues and my friends. I've also appreciated the opportunity to work closely with many of you who are with us now as board members, National Leadership Council members, staff, educators, journalists, partners, and donors. Thank you for all that you have done to help NLP expand our capacity, reach, and impact as our mission has become ever more critical for the education of the next generation, the preservation of quality journalism, and most of all, the future of the country's democracy. For those of you who are not yet involved with us, we invite you to join our growing circle of virtue and become a change maker in your community. There are various ways you can do so. Educators can join our Newslit Nation. Journalists can join our Newsroom to Classroom program. Anyone can subscribe to our newsletters and follow and amplify us on social media and access and share our resources. Finally, we welcome new financial support as we expand our efforts to reach the general public to create a more news-literate America. As Chuck mentioned, I am turning over the CEO role to him on July 1. I do so with the utmost confidence in his experience, expertise, and impressive leadership skills, confidence that is shared by the board and the staff. At the same time, I am moving over, not moving out, and will remain actively engaged with NLP at this critical moment for our country and its civic life. Thank you again for joining us on this meaningful occasion.